What doom have you been scrolling today? What new fresh horror has the internet served for you? Anyway, I hope that our time together here that we spent reflecting can be an antidote and a salve for that. I need to remind everybody what I'm doing here and why I'm doing it. I'm coming on live for 20 days to find my own voice and find my own flow. My so that is because I'm aiming um, my intention at ramping up my own leadership and activity in a project called A Better Way, where we're welcoming people into community to practice this wisdom that I'm rambling on about every single day, because it's not all just about the beautiful rambles. There's actually intelligent and coherent models, frameworks, practices that we can distill and we can integrate slowly into our lives, into our personal lives, our personal development, our sense of actualization and meaning in the world, our ways that we actualize in through our relationships. We can enrich and deepen our relationships. We can show leadership in those relationships. And then the third leg of this is our work. So it's our self, our relationships and containers, and our work and our passions. Specifically our crafts and our callings, whatever we have deep and profound calling to as a vocation in life. And it might not be your day job, but there's better and worse ways to balance these three things together in a kind of meaningful tension, because there's never a perfect balance. There's no such thing as work-life balance. It's an ongoing tension and a constant unfolding that we're trying to weave together and make meaning from. And the idea of a better way is that it's something that's necessary now. It's been made necessary by this moment in time that we're all sharing. Now, I tried to record a video before, but I completely lost my train of thought. It was so bad, in fact, that I actually had to stop. And I don't mind being vulnerable here on camera. It's just that it was so counterproductive. There's a little willy wagtail right above my head over here. I wish you could hear him. Um, I've nearly lost my train of thought again. So what happens for me, because I'm extremely neurodivergent, right? That's why I live out on the edge, the fringe of of normal. There's nothing normal about me. Like if anybody knows anything about me, it's that I went through this kind of not exactly self-chosen but necessary path of exile from the world. I stepped away from my community. I lost part of it during a very difficult divorce. Lost my family. I'm estranged from my birth family. Um, I've emigrated to Australia. We have almost no community here. And the last thread of contact that I had into the world was the corporate world in my corporate job. And that ended unceremoniously in 2023. And that was just the end of a long journey of me almost withdrawing in a kind of mystical cocoon phase, like a caterpillar going into a chrysalis and dissolving completely. And I'm trying to break through into the emergence to come back into the world to be useful at a time where I think that what I understand and what I've come to understand and how it relates to everybody is probably more useful now than it's ever been before. And we're going through a period of profound change. If you haven't felt it already, my mind boggles how. Um, and you must know by now, you must know that our existing ways of solving problems, our existing patterns of system and certainty are also going to be unraveled now. There's almost no thing that you can say for sure is going to exist the way it does in 5 years' time. Just think about how you used to be able to buy a piece of software and it was your software, right? And then the next minute it was license fees. And then the next minute you couldn't even own the software. You had to pay a monthly subscription. And somehow this became the model for everything. There are companies out there which are sucking the life out of us and selling it back to us as a subscription. Every single thing that you need, that you value, is a subscription. And everything's disingenuous, everything's cynical. Um, there's no sense of hope the way there once was. And I feel that, and I have felt that. And for some reason, people like me feel that years out, like we're sort of out of time. If the human race is on a train car, I feel like I'm somehow unhappily 6 or 7 cars ahead, watching the unpleasant reality that we're about to encounter, but not having the language or the means to describe to the folks in 6 carriages back what's happening. And this is, of course, the burden of the seer and the prophet and the mystic. Now, these tropes exist in our stories because human beings are like this. We feel this way. Not everyone, but there are these exceptional outliers that are our necessary outliers. They are the ones that see these sorts of things first and go through the alchemy of pain and disorientation and discomfort to try find their way and try find their own sanity. And I attribute that, so the most relatable word would be neurodivergence or neuroatypical. And people who are neurodivergent are in that very broad category are autistic, Aspergic, ADHD. There's a lot of diagnoses that fall into that. But what it feels like for me is I'm constantly moving through the world, listening to people have conversations that I know are fake, that I know that they don't mean. They are almost rehearsed clips of conversations while everybody tries to do this weird, awkward social dance to keep this emperor's new clothes kind of illusion alive, because we're so fearful deep inside of ourselves of being raw and real, and we actually don't have the social dynamics to navigate outside of that. Because even if we try to be raw and real, the people around us will simply think we're insane, and we don't know how to give ourselves the necessary level of permission to show up the way we think we should show up. Because our whole society, right from the time we were kids in our families, through school, through our first jobs, if we went to the army, or if we tried to get onto the dating scene as young people, there's always these cultures of etiquette and probity and structure and status. And the game always seems rigged, and it always seems to be changing. And yet some people manage to be successful. But the nature of neuroatypical people would be, we look at that, what seems to be normal, and one of two things can happen. Either we can sell our souls out and subscribe to this, knowing that we're being disingenuous, knowing that it's a load of bullshit, or we can try find our own way. So we become eccentric, we become unrelatable, we become the exiles, the unclassifiable. And there's always been such people in societies, and now there's lots of them, and you have to wonder why. And that's nature's response to the enormous level of change that we've created in our society, and the enormous level of change, rude, difficult, traumatizing change that we're going to have to face as a species. We're going to have to face this. And if you can't see it coming, keep listening and see if your mind is gradually changing, and I'm sounding more and more convincing as the years go by. I've been talking about this for 5 years, and when I started talking about this, my friends used to like turn their heads and look at me and try and talk me out of my delusion. And I struggled with that until I had fewer and fewer friends, because I wasn't prepared to shut the fuck up. But I also wasn't very eloquent, and I also was pretty intense, because I was processing just an insane amount of what I now call mystic psychosis. But who else is going through that, right? And such people the outliers, the ones who think differently, the ones who can't, who look at the normal and realize how deeply abnormal it is what we're doing. Those are the people who can engineer us towards different kinds of solutions. They are the wayfinders, the wayfinders. These are our wayfinders. And instead of marginalizing such people or thinking that there's something wrong with them and trying to fix them, I think we're learning as a species now, very slowly and maybe a little too late, we're learning to try and listen to those voices. Now, I found my way, and I know the cost that it cost me, right? And this project that I'm trying to run, A Better Way, the whole point of that is to try and illuminate for people you are not insane. You are not crazy. The system that you belong to is patently insane. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to cook up a new fucking religion. We're not going to tug on the hems of sages that have been dead for 2,000 years and sit and pore meticulously and sycophantically over every word that Marcus Aurelius or Seneca had to say. I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom there that we can distill, but they are not here. They are not here. And they don't have the context of what's happening. They don't have any idea on how to guide us through this moment. And if we're trying to distill and extrude wisdom that we can apply to this present moment through the lens of those old texts and those old modalities, how inefficient is that process where we've got thought leaders, game changers, torchbearers, imagineers, technologists of human technology that are arriving now. I was listening to a podcast the other day. This is where I lost my train of thought in the last video, by a guy called Josh Schray, and he runs a podcast called The Emerald, and I highly recommend it. It's about making sense and normalizing the animist project, and that simply means reconnecting with the wisdom and the sense making of treating the world and everything in it as connected and having some form of consciousness and intelligence that we can stand in relationship with. Now, that's a much wiser, much more prudent way of facing the reality that we're living. And if I can help myself not lose my train of thought again, which I almost have, what the hell was I talking about? Not twice, man. Oh, fuck, I've done it again, hey. 2 times in a row, man. This is insane. My brain just does not want to go there. I'm talking about Josh Schray of the Emerald. Why was I talking about Josh Schray? What the fuck? Ah, man, this is so infuriating. This happened already, and I canceled the video. I don't fucking know, man. So the short version of all of this is what I'm trying to do in a better way is I'm trying to normalize what we have forgotten, and that is things like the necessity of initiation. And but I wanted to that's it. I found my train of thought. That's it. I wanted to explain what we don't want to do. We don't want more Instagram spirituality. We don't want more funnel bros. We don't, hey Jim, right on time. We don't want to normalize the people whose voices we need to be hearing. We don't want to normalize the idea that they need to look like they've got $10,000 production budgets and that they're making all the right perfect cues on the videos. We need to denormalize the idea that something of value is going to be transmitted in 15-second reels or in the sound bites of a tweet. We're struggling to understand geopolitics at the moment, and now everyone's paying attention to it. And there's a lot of things being said by people that have no idea what they're talking about, but they're delivering them in punchy sound bites. Geopolitics is an adult conversation for grown-ups. You can't understand it in sound bites, and you can't hack it out on a Twitter thread or in the comments section of a Facebook post. We can't do that, right? So that's another thing we're not going to do. We're not going to get more degrees and turn to academia to see what more stuffy old bullshit and gatekeeping we can squash out of that project. We're not going to get a messianic billionaire to come along and save us. We shouldn't be looking to any messianic figure, any guru, any hero to save us. That doesn't mean we can't learn from teachers. Of course it doesn't. But it means that psychologically, if you cede control psychologically to another agency, that something has to come along and wipe your ass or rescue you or redeem you, whether as an individual or as a species one day. Let's say aliens arrive and they pull our ass out the fire and they rescue us and just on the brink. Yes, we will be grateful, but we will live with that psychological blemish and stain on our potential forever. Forever, we will remember ourselves as the species who had to get saved. Right? So there's a lot of things we can't do. And I remember now why I brought up Josh Schray, the guy that talks about animism. Is one day he was having a conversation with somebody who studies Tibetan Buddhism, which is infused with a lot of animistic and shamanistic practices. They haven't separated those two out, and it doesn't look like they're ever going to. And just as well, because they've got the veracity of the Buddhist project, but they've woven it into this lineage of animist practices, acknowledging that we're in relationship with intelligences and consciousnesses that don't always seem present or visible in ways that we can relate to. And it doesn't have to be weird or woo-woo. And the way that they've organized their ontology of what's happening is they've noticed different aspects of so let's call them spirits that human beings can be influenced by. Now, you don't have to, again, believe in anything supernatural. You know what it feels like to have a team that you're playing for get roused by the spirit of triumph or the spirit of excitement or the spirit of defeat. You can beat another team psychologically. Someone can get in your head, right? And you can, excuse me, and you can be a host for that kind of spirit, for any kind of spirit, whether it's an addictive spirit, whether it's a vengeful spirit, whether it's some form of mania. We all get, so we understand how it feels to be influenced by these things. And all that they've done is they've developed a taxonomy, and given names to and drawn pictures for, so that they can relate to these intelligences and consciousnesses that can influence our life and our lives. And they describe these syndromes almost like the hungry ghost syndrome. The hungry ghost syndrome is the syndrome of the addict for whom there's no such thing as enough, right? So we all recognize that. We've seen that in ourselves and we've seen that in other people. And there's another one, and I wouldn't know the names of these things, but this particular parasitic kind of arrangement with the cosmos is they describe this as this spirit loves nothing more than connecting itself to people who want to be holy. And they describe the behavior as they love dressing in white and singing songs, and they look like this. I've met people like that. I've met people in the spiritual community that have this breathy, staring into your eyes, this beatific smile, that just radiant smile, and there's fucking nothing going on behind those eyes. They don't have anything intelligent to say. They don't have any thoughts on life. They're not going anywhere with their lives. They're just in the magic drink. And according to this tradition, this Tibetan Buddhist tradition, what's happening here is there is something that benefits the attention and the presence and the hosting that a human being can do to sit in that latent stage of not going anywhere, just convincing itself in this illusion that it's deeply spiritual. So there's so many traps that exist for us that we don't want to do, that we don't want to engage in. And the distillation of all of that comes down to a statement that says, there are no right or only ways for us to be shaping our lives in our personal development, our relationship, and in our work as individuals or as species. There's no right or only ways, but there have to be better and worse ways. Religion and science and philosophy, these are the three minds that we employ to try and make sense of our reality and decide what the best thing is to do from here on out. The problem is none of our religions reconcile, and the only way that that's going to end is in war, right? None of our two branches of science themselves can't find that Rosetta Stone of common ground between quantum physics and macro classical physics. And it's not because anyone's hiding any bullshit there. But you can do particle physics until, come on, you can do particle physics until the cows come home, and you're still never going to find that magical bridge that he's talking to the folks. This is Maya, who's about to go to school. I'm taking you to school. I'm just going to finish up. No, you be quiet. Daddy needs to finish, okay? You want to look through one of these books? You don't have to. You can look at the bees over here. Look at those two bees. Okay. There, I've gone and forgotten my train of thought again. So, Jim, if you can remind me what I was saying. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my head's lost it. Oh, yeah, there's better and worse ways to be looking at how to be working on all the projects that we care about. And everybody that I've seen, or so many people that I've seen, hey, Mark, so many people that I've seen online are trying to sell you something. They're trying to get you into a program. They've had a spiritual experience or a life-changing experience, and now they want to monetize it. Everything is an analysis or a regurgitation or a repetition or a repackaging. People are studying hermetics and Kabbalah and alchemy, and they're trying to find the whole answer in there. And they're getting confused as to what is tradition and what is sensible and what is meaning and what is allegory. And it's a fucking confusing mess, right? We're missing a spiritual experience, but we don't have a map to follow. And we haven't figured out yet that we're going to have to develop a new map. The human race is having a crisis right now. We're going to have a kind of shipwreck happening. And instead of wondering what happened and whose fault it was, we really need to be much more concerned about how we navigate this moment, how we reach the beachhead, how we get as many of ourselves alive and okay onto that beach, and how we build a future from that point onwards. We need to be thinking like that. And the A Better Way project exists for exactly that purpose. Now, I keep forgetting when I come on to mention to this, and I think I've done a real hack job today because I'm deep in one of those psychotic periods where it's a real struggle for me to remain coherent, and I need to actually slow down and try and marshal my thoughts, but they are going all over the place. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to read something. Yeah. It's called Not Today, and it's from an older book of mine called Keeper of the Flame. It says, life throws wave after wave of ordeal at us. The difference between an ordeal and a trial is not the circumstance. It is how we choose to face it. Life throws wave after wave of ordeal at us. And the difference between an ordeal and a trial is not the circumstance. It is how we choose to face it, how we choose to face it. They say only a fool turns their back on the sea, for it is relentless, capricious, and unpredictable. And when you are adrift in the open waters of life, no matter which bright horizon we aim to face, our back is always to the ocean. When you're adrift in the open water of life in the middle, no matter which bright horizon you're aiming to face, you're in a circumstance where your back is always to the ocean, and we can be caught unawares from every which way, including below. We can be caught from below in the open waters of life. And below, of course, is our own shadow, our own ignorance. Yeah. All we have, all we have is love and defiance. Love and defiance. And it will not be enough forever, this love and defiance. There are moments that come where no amount of love and defiance in the world lets you transcend or win this moment. All we have is love and defiance. It will not be enough forever, but it is enough for today. That stance is what makes of the ordeal a trial. We get to choose our stance. We get to say, not today. And every trial that life throws at us, every wave we ride, every wave we ride becomes a wave we make. Every wave we ride becomes a wave we make. We are who we repeatedly choose to be. We are also a relentless wave. This is not our first rodeo. This will not be our last, not yet, not today. Today I am swimming. Today I choose love and I choose life. I will face the trial and I will not be timid or undone. You did not come this far. You did not come this far to only come this far. There is a shore out there, humanity. There is a shore out there. There is a future that can embrace us if we can start imagining it. There is a shore out there. Somewhere, even the endlessness ends. Somewhere, somewhere, the shoreline is being made anew. Every wave that arrives, lapping against the ocean, no two waves look the same, and there's this constant hem of changing impermanence, almost like a different kind of quantum field that we're lapping at the shores of. Somewhere, even the endlessness ends. Somewhere, the shoreline is being made anew in every moment, and a will no greater than yours, a will no greater than yours is riding like foam over those waves, riding like foam to spill onto a beach which is itself that which has become of eternal mountains. Just think about the sand on the beaches. These things used to be stone and mountains that were carved by rivers and tumbled into the sea. And the rivers themselves come from snowmelt from rivers that were once themselves at the bottom of an ocean. Somewhere, even the endlessness ends. Somewhere, the shoreline is being made anew in every moment, and a will no greater than yours, is riding like foam to spill onto a beach that is itself what has become of once eternal mountains. When we reach there, we learn it was the relentlessness. When we reach there, we actually learn it was the relentlessness. To reach means to aim for something beyond yourself, but also it's the same word that it means to arrive in that place. When we reach there, we learn it was the relentlessness, the relentless fear of being undone that actually drove us all that way on and impossibly on, just so long as we kept saying, not today. When we reach there, we learn it was the relentlessness, the relentless fear of being undone that actually drove us all that way on and impossibly on, just so long as we kept saying, not today, not today. You are either riding waves, being tossed by the waves, or perhaps you are making the waves. Either way, there will be waves. So you must be relentless in your choosing. You must make for sure. If you must be undone at that infinite shoreline. That is where tomorrow begins. That is the event horizon beyond this small recurring moment, beyond the threat of new ordeals, beyond the threat of new ordeals, where it is finally right to be undone, so that we can become something more. At the place where new trials await, it is worth defying even the endless heaving of the entire ocean for this. 1,000 times, 1,000 times the waves will come, and 1,000 times you must say, not today. I was destined for tomorrow. I've turned to that piece a number of times and realized that when the caterpillar is disappearing and dissolving and aiming to become the butterfly, something remarkable happens. The caterpillar actually dissolves completely. Its cells and its nervous system and its tissue, its viscera, all just dissolves, right? And the cells of the emerging butterfly begin to already arrive. And in that moment, the immune system of the caterpillar, the arriving cells, the future potential of what it can become is so foreign that the immune system attacks the incoming cells of the butterfly. Miraculous. Not only that, but that process plays itself out inside this locked off shell of the cocoon, a way that the animal separates itself completely from nature to go through its own transformation process. Yeah, that we can each go through in moments of psychosis like this. And when it emerges, the scientists that study these animals and have come to understand them tell us that that transformation of what became the butterfly was only possible in part because of the resistance put up by that immune system. And we realize that it's the relentlessness and our struggle against it that actually performs the alchemy that allows us to transform from what we were into what we're going to become. As long as we can keep saying, not today, I'm destined for tomorrow. Now I'm getting the cue to go and drop my kid off at school. So thank you everybody for sticking through this incoherent ramble. I'll post it in a minute. Thank you, Jim, so much for showing up. And thank you, Mark. I hope to see you back here. Take care and have a beautiful day.